Welcome to the It's Your Choice podcast, where we learn how to rewire our brains to live the life we desire. On with the show. Welcome to the podcast. Today I'm speaking with Franziska Kleffel. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Hello.
So you have an interesting background in a few ways. One, as a third culture kid, and we'll talk a little bit about that for people who are unaware of exactly what that is. But then you also do some Reiki, psychotherapy, and constellation work.
Yes, that is correct. I
So
love what I do.
let's, and I want to touch base on all of those things, and that's why I kind of mentioned it. But first, let's start out with what we know as like a third culture kid, because not everybody listening is aware of exactly what that means.
Right. This means that you actually grow up or you move to some place with your family. You grow up in a different culture than the original culture that your family's from. So I was born in Germany, but my parents moved to Japan when I was 5.5, I think. So I went there to kindergarten and to school, to a German international school. And then we moved to Pakistan, and I spent 4 years in an American international school there. And then my parents moved to New York, but by that time I was already starting to, well, we spent a little time in Germany and then they moved to New York after that. And by then I was already in university, so I didn't go with them, but I visited there often. And it's something that it does something to you to grow up this way. It's like you don't really feel home in your in your passport country. And for me, it has instilled an everlasting travel bug. So I really like to travel the world, not as in like a tourist kind of way, but I like to slow travel. So I'll stay in places for a couple of weeks or months and really immerse in the culture around me and find connections there. And I think for me, it's the greatest gift that my parents gave me. I'm really, really very fortunate.
I I agree. I do a lot of travel, and I have another podcast, Global Citizen Life, which is all about travel and relocating and moving abroad and things. And for you though, growing up, I mean, that's quite different. And I've talked to people that are a third culture kids, and and it was not something that I experienced. And also too, like you moving to such different cultures, like from the very first young years and our early years, we don't remember much, but being in that the home country, but then going to Japan, like I'm those will leave, even though you may not remember specifically some things at 5, and some you will, those have impressions and things that you went through that are now internal, like in that subconscious part of the brain, and spending many years there, and how cultures, to then going to Pakistan, which is completely different culture once again. And then, as you said, then you were in university, you did travel a bit and visit your parents in the United States. So different than Pakistan and Japan as well. So how has those years of development really helped you, that you feel with helping others, with your psychotherapy, with everything that you do to help other people?
It's made me very, very open and really truly open, like from the get-go. Like it's something inbuilt because I see humans as humans, no matter where they come from, how they look, and what they believe. And this is also like it's kind of, I think it's a benefit to my international clients as well, who just really feel seen. Because for instance, if I have someone from Indian culture, I know that many Westerners don't get a lot of that. I've traveled. I have to add that also as a grown up, I've traveled a lot. Yeah, I said that before, right? And I really like to stay
Mhm.
in places. In India, my doctor is in India, like in southern
Okay.
India. So I have doctors in Germany, your regular physician, whatever. But my doctor
Yep.
is Dr. Hema in India because she's helped me the best with my issues. So just saying that. So it's really like, for instance, if it's about arranged marriage or something, I know that many Westerners like, oh, but I'm like, hey, this is your culture. I'm totally open. I've talked to many Indians about it, and I'm like, yeah, I will not, flinch or think like, what's this? just one little example of like really me being like, hey,
Mm,
yeah, I respect every culture. I think every culture has something to teach us. So this, I mean, now we're on the culture thing, but I think this added a lot to my psychotherapeutic, approach, that I really see people for who they are and accept them fully. I am from the humanistic background, which means they have like these layers of you believe in the innate urge to self grow, to self develop in every person. And every
mm,
person for me is every person, no matter what
right.
they think. And I don't know if that answers your question, kind of like it's an openness to really, and I love it. I love exploring this, just like I love travel. I love exploring, the life stories and the thoughts of people. And I just go along with them and try to really help them figure out, especially if they're in between cultures themselves, like how do I navigate
Mm,
this? How do I stay authentic and mix what I've been learning, through my cultural influences, and also this another nuance that I kind of can grasp through this, even with Germans,
mm,
let's say, because I'm licensed in Germany.
mhm.
But I have international clients in Germany. So even that, even with Germans, I can see what influenced them, and they may not, because we're in a German conversation, but I can see
Right.
what's happening.
Hmm. No, it makes sense. I think just because even with living in different places, or people like if you do really slow travel, like being in places for several months, to get to know. And the more we do that, I've often said when I started my traveling, I realized that my thoughts and my beliefs are not right. They are not wrong, but they are only mine because of the life experience that I've had, the parents that raised me, the things
Exactly.
that they taught me, my community, the people around me. And if I was taken at 2, 3, 4 years old and moved to China, my beliefs and thoughts would be different. If I was in Russia, my beliefs and thoughts would be different. If I was in Syria, my beliefs and thoughts would be different. If I was in Morocco, my belief, like every place is different. And so
Yes.
I like to say to people and often question, and I also do it with myself, why do you think that? Why do you
Mm.
believe that? And I really love having conversations with people who do have different thoughts and beliefs, and just to find out why. And it is a lot of times is their experience. And I could say, I get it. If I experienced that, or if that's what I was taught, that's how I lived, I would have those thoughts and beliefs as well. And so I think that we really need to realize that our thoughts and beliefs aren't right or wrong. Like they're just ours
Yeah.
because of our situation. And so because they're not right and they're not wrong, we can change them. We
Right.
can
Yeah.
question them in a way to change them if we want, or we can realize our brain's feeding us that negative whatever comment that some teacher told us in grade 7 that's just stuck with us forever. That's wait, that's the comment was made, yes, but that doesn't define who I am, and I can change my thoughts and beliefs to what I
Exactly.
want them to be.
Right. And
Easier said
deliberately
than
so,
done.
this is, yes, of course. Yes, it's a process. And deliberately so, I'd like to add, because, this is also what is very important for me in my work, is that I don't push, I'm not directive. I'm not saying like, well, you should consider this, but I go along with them. And then if they find themselves, like thinking, oh, wait a minute, I could think this way, or maybe this is not helpful, then I will go along, but I will not correct them. It's not about like, oh, you're thinking wrong, or what's this idea, but it's really like, how does that make you feel? Is that doing you good, or is it detrimental to you? And just like you
Mm,
said, we can change this. It's a process. It's a process. I mean, sometimes, I
yes.
would like meditate for 30 days, like every morning on some one thought that I would like to, for myself, change and
Hmm.
alter. And it takes time, because you're always like really, drawn back to the old me or the old understanding. And so I think, and especially, growing up in Asia, is I have the impression that us Westerners, if you will, or the Western world, or however you might call it, there's quite a lot of arrogance there to, oh, we have it all figured out. Like, look at us, and it's no, no, we don't have it
No.
figured out. Sorry to say.
Yeah,
Right. So it's
no,
like,
no. no country has it figured out,
Right.
and every country does something better than another country.
Right. Yeah.
And I
So
think that's
yeah, it's the diversity, isn't it? I love it. I love it.
it
It's such
is.
a, I love also, this is
And
another disclaimer, whatever. Sorry to say, you want to say it?
no, no, it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
Uh, Whatever I say here is like also, and this is not only that I'm saying it for me, but also for anyone who's listening. This is the status quo of where we both are in this moment in time, in our development, in our
Mm,
consciousness. So in 10 years from
mhm.
now, we might, have added something else and whatever. So I really, a lot of times it's like, it's a proclamation of this and that. It's not. This is here and now. It's another, by the way, I've realized myself, but I've heard also of third culture kids that they are very aware of the here and now because they've had so much change in their life happening. It's
Mm,
like
mhm.
it's so normal for them that it sometimes may also leave a little bit of a like you have to change all the time. But it's also, for me, it left a fascination of, wow, everything is so flexible. You can change it. There's always a plan B, C, D to be had. Let's figure this out. It's like until you pass on to wherever, you have time to figure things out, not as in figure outable, but like, wow, challenges. And I'm sometimes, I know in dark moments in my therapy also, I sit with it on the one hand, but on the other hand, my clients know that I'm a helpless optimist. I will see the good in every challenge and see the good in every crisis. It's all a chance for growth. So
Mm.
I love diversity
And
for
you,
that. Even if it's just monotonous and always the same, there's no change.
no, and we need some change. Like, and how much there's six basic human needs that people have, and one of them is consistency, and one of them is change. Or
Right.
just things that are different, and every person again is different. Some people really like that consistency, everything the same, with some speckles of some change and stuff without it, where some of us are, I think, a little bit more like me, where I like a lot of change all the time, new excitement, different things, but a fair amount of consistency
Right.
within that, and we're all a little bit different, so figuring out how we are individual, because I say it to people all the time, as human beings, it doesn't matter where you come from. We are pretty much all the same. Like physically, we're the same, heart,
Yes.
lungs, brain, all of that kind of stuff. Emotionally, we're a little bit different. Some people are more sensitive to than others, which is fine. And then most people are good. People generally want to be. There's unfortunately some bad apples, but sometimes there's a variety of reasons why they become bad apples, and sometimes that can be fixed and helped. Sometimes it's undiagnosed brain injuries and things going on in the brain that we just didn't know.
Right.
And there's been some scientific studies, which was very interesting. Dr. Amen does brain scans, and he went to a prison one time, I think it was a few years back, and they did brain scans on all the prisoners. And once they did, I don't know all the types of things that they did, but there was like some supplements given, different diet given, and I'm sure a little bit of counseling and therapy. And they saw physical changes in the
Hmm.
brain, and people became better
Yes.
and didn't have the beliefs, thoughts, and desires
Right.
and things that they had before. And so, we would never have known that even 10
Yes.
years ago. I
Yes.
mean, early stages he was doing that, but so there's sometimes there's reasons, and those things can change, but there's generally we're all the same. And then down to the cellular level, where we're different when it comes to diet and things like that, because some people have
Right.
allergies and intolerances and things. So we need to know that we all want happiness, joy, love, relationships, those types of
Yes.
things.
Underneath it all,
How we
we have
find
the
those are
same.
different. Mhm. Because
Exactly. And then
what
speaking of
what does it mean
neuroplasticity,
to be happy? What is joy to you?
right.
And we need to, just because our brother, cousin, sister, uncle, whatever, they do whatever things, that doesn't mean that that's going to bring us joy and happiness. Just because, you
Totally.
know,
Totally. Everyone is
somebody's
so
super famous
different.
and makes lots
It's
of
the, it's
money.
the it's the
Yeah.
weird mix of everyone, underneath it all, I think we're all the same. We're all just one human race, if you will. But then the
Hmm.
differences, and that's why I'm also like, maybe that's why I'm also emphasizing change so much, because of course people who come to me as clients, they want change, they're at a point in their lives where they want to transform and change stuff that is not working for them. So it's good to come, at least for the ones, I mean, it's also always a resonance thing, isn't it? Like the people who come to me will be the ones who want the kind of change that I can assist them with, and I'm very
Right. Yeah.
flexible and fluid, if you will, with that. So it's like, but yeah, I totally agree. And the neuroplasticity you were also touching on. I think it's so fast. That's why I believe we can learn. We are here to learn. This is my belief, like on this earth, in this life, to learn just mine. And I don't know if you know Dr. Tara Swart. She has a lot of interesting material and podcasts on this too. She's like, I love her. She's so eloquent and awake. It's amazing. And this is way down my alley, really, to really like embrace this. And like you said, I think even a consistency of change. For instance, in my example, I think for me the highest, how can I say, the highest value is freedom. I have
Hmm.
understood throughout my life. So, and it's something else for others. But this way, I always like what I said before in the disclaimer is like, I don't adhere to something if I see it doesn't work for me anymore, or the concept is outgrown or whatever. And again, this helps my
Right.
clients to really see like, maybe I should, that's not working for me anymore, like maybe and
Mm.
that's why I always change so much, that you can always change. And even if you just change your perspective, and what I say, when you said the prisons, I remember I used to work for TV and film and back in Germany in one of my many former jobs. And I remember we did this little police series. And there was one day that we were supposed to go to a prison. And I'm very sensitive, so highly sensitive, I would say even. So we went in there just to scope out the things. And I felt so, of course, imprisoned in a way, being the freedom person, but also,
Hmm.
and I saw the menu because you were relating to that. The menu was full of meat and full of like just like things which you would, have this picture of the cantina in a movie where they would just throw just like mucky stuff at you and this is what you eat. And the whole atmosphere was just so tense. And I thought, it's like you're keeping these people in the same tense atmosphere that created them to be how they are now. Like, please. And I said,
Mm.
actually, after this scoping out, and we would have like been filming there for 3 days, I said, look, I can't be in this atmosphere. You have to use someone else for these 3 days. So really, because I feel that so much. So when you were touching on prisons, I thought, yeah, that needs to change, like give them the
Yeah. And
opportunity.
well, sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to let you know about the Mind Matters weekly newsletter that is full of actionable tips to help you rewire your brain to live the life that you desire. Sign up for it at sallypederson.com. And when you do, you'll get the top 5 brain hacks for peak performance. Again, you can get it at sallypederson.com. Now back to the show. Well, as you know, and as we've been told, I remember science class when I was little, energy is not created nor destroyed. Like it's
Mm,
something that and it was one thing that, I was kind of as a kid, okay, it changes, whatever that means. And we could, there were some examples that they would show us to understand as a child, and those are kind of simple things. But when we really look at it, if it is neither created nor destroyed, it's constantly going and flowing somewhere. And we've all experienced different types of energy, and sometimes we call it, oh, it was a red flag, or I had a gut instinct, or
right,
I don't know if I like that person. Something's off, or something's off about the situation. Like something just feels weird here.
right,
And we
right.
have that, but I think a lot of times, we kind of tune it out because sometimes people are like, oh,
Yes,
that's hokey pokey, whatever they
right.
kind of call it. But we all know that we've had it and
I
it's
know.
there. And I
Yeah.
think if we listen to it more, like sometimes mine's not
Yes.
always right. I think something I'm like, okay, well, it wasn't always right. But even if it's like the littlest things of,
Yes.
I really should go to the store right now. I could go
Mm,
later, but something's like, I should go now. And when I don't, then something happens later and then I don't make it, or the weather was fine now, and then later it's pouring rain and I have to go out in the pouring rain. Like it could be just little things that
Right.
don't make a big difference. But I find the more I listen, the more I pay attention, the more things happen. And sometimes
Yes.
then they relate to bigger things. And that's that energy of the world, earth, universe, everything kind of telling us. And when we listen more to that, it really is important. And that's again ways that we can then also start to change our thinking. It's like, well, why?
Totally, totally. I agree with you. I think many of us are, most of us, I guess, are over adapted because, of course, we want to, belong. That's one of the main needs of us, to belong somewhere.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
and I find often enough, even in anxiety disorders, I don't know if all colleagues would agree, but I find that it's often people who are very much over adapted, who have for long stretches of time not listened to their inner voice, and now it's screaming, you know? So it's like if you have a panic
Right.
attack and so it's like been chronic, that German word is chronifiziert. It's been chronification, whatever that is. So chronicized.
Like
What do you say?
quantified, maybe quantified.
Well, quantified, but also it's chronic by now, So it started out as
Oh,
something like
okay.
you're not
Hmm.
listening to your inner voice and you're adapting, and that over time, that's not the only reason for anxiety disorders, but I think it's a very big
Right.
element of them. So in my work and what
Mhm.
you're telling also is like really, I try to really that people find, I give this space, safe space to find yourself in this world, to really know, okay, is this real? Is this intuition, or is this my upbringing, or my whatever, or my trying to belong thing talking out of me? Or is it really that I know actually I shouldn't go there, or I should talk to these people, or I cannot trust that person, or I don't want to work here, or whatever it is. It's like, and
Right.
this is not going, like, oh, I'm in paradise and everything is fine. And I just, this is not about, it is, of course, a privileged, there is a certain amount of privilege to this, to be able to make choices and stuff. If you're born into a situation
Mm.
where everything is very confined, it's very much harder. So we're talking on a very
Right.
privileged level here, I would say. On the other hand, with all this, and this is another thing that I think my Eastern upbringing, or my Asian upbringing, or my vision from that has brought me, is like, I think we in the Western world, I don't even want to say we because well, yeah, I guess I am part of this. Um, we think we're so free and so, in so many ways, we're so not.
Right.
This freedom has overstrung in a way which is so weird to me in many ways.
Mm.
It's kind of hard to describe what I mean. Us as women, on one part, like many people put down the traditional way of other countries. Like, I'm like, well, we women were asked to have babies, to have a career, to have the after baby body, which is perfect, to just keep running. We're doing like 250% here, and everyone
Right.
is still expecting we have to look good while doing it. And it's like, and then it's like, yeah, you're just traditional. Like, hey, cool. What's wrong with that? I'm not saying that I would choose that kind of lifestyle, but you know what I mean? It's just another way of like
Well,
really thinking, oh, we're so free and so great.
yeah, I'm a true believer in equal rights and
Yes,
equality, absolutely. But I think this
for
whole
everyone.
feminism type thing has gone just absolutely crazy. Like, of course, I can live without a man, and men can live without women. I mean, eventually the human race would become extinct if there was, but there, and I do believe there are what I call blue jobs and pink jobs. And I know people are going to get mad at me for this, but this is my own thing, and I don't care. It's me. And I don't mean, like, I think barbecuing is a blue job. That's such a boy job. It's a man thing. Can I barbecue? Yes, I can. And I'm okay at doing it. And I have done it many a times. But if I have the choice to not barbecue and a man's going to barbecue for me, I'd love that man to barbecue for me. I have no problems doing dishes. I actually find it quite relaxing. And
Mhm.
so and I have friends that hate doing dishes. So sometimes when I go to my friends, I have one friend that I see quite often, and she loves cooking and she's a great cook. So she always cooks and I always just clean up and do the dishes. And we don't even talk about it or think about it because that's what she loves to do. And I mean, I'm single, so cooking for one, kind of sucks for me. I love having dinner parties and I'll cook up a lot then. But I do think, like I've been single. I lived in Canada. I shoveled the sidewalk. I mowed the lawn. I did all those things. Can I do it? Yes. Would it be nice to have a man to do those things?
Right.
Absolutely. And so
Yeah.
I think it's gotten crazy because we don't, yeah, when we think of need, no. But you know what? You don't need a big house. You don't need a Porsche. You don't need a Maserati. You don't need all this extravagant food. We don't need 90% of what we have. So,
Yes.
like let's look at things realistically. And for somebody who wants to be corporate president of a massive company, whether that's a man or woman, and that's what you desire to do, you go do
Go
you.
for it.
Good for
Yeah,
you. Don't tell me
exactly.
that I shouldn't be at home or look down upon me because I choose to be at home and raise kids and be a good mom and not have some daycare facility teaching my kid morals
Right.
and values because I don't even know what those person's morals and values are. If you need to do it because you have to work, and my daughter went to daycare because I had to work, and those are choices, and I get that. But this whole extreme, it's we have both because we need both to have a better, happier, more fulfilling life.
Yeah, and it's what you said, and also like these cultural things. Like I remember, uh, was it that I think I entered a bus once, and the bus driver, who was clearly not German, he said something because I had a kid in tow. Like he said something, I can't even remember his exact words, but there was so much respect for motherhood in them. And it was like, this, you don't, sorry. I mean, you might get this from some other German bus driver, but so far, those are the little moments where I see, like there's so much more respect for in other cultures that we as Westerners, I have to say we, even though I just kind of like weirdly calculate myself in and not at the same time, when I'm trying to like, I don't know,
Hmm.
yeah. So, we don't even register that. It's like that motherhood in other cultures is really highly valued, and
Right.
respected. And I'm not saying like everyone be a mother, please. This is not about that, but it's really like
No,
that for us it's just like yeah, you raised the kids, nice. What did you
it's
what corporate
hard to be
job did you
parents.
I know
It's
it's a job, it's a
it's
full-time
hard.
job.
It is a full-time job because I've even said before, I met somebody and she's like, "Oh, I'm just a stay-at-home mom." And I'm like, "Just?"
No,
I'm like, "Oh, so you're a mom and you're also a teacher. You're also a doctor. You're a nurse. And I went on a list of all these things
right,
because as mom, through the ages of raising kids, we do all that. And she was like, "I never thought of it that way." And I'm like,
right.
it's
Do
not
you know that one
just a
commercial?
mom.
Did you see that one commercial where they had like the setup job interview, and the guy would like say, okay, are you willing to like work over hours all the time? There's no holidays. You do most of your stuff standing up and no extra pay. And then they ask, okay, what's the salary for this insane job? Like nothing. And they're like, what? Who does that? And then he says, moms. And everyone was like, oh
Oh,
my gosh, yes, it's my mom.
I didn't see that. I'll have to do
No,
a
you should
search
look
for
at
it
it.
and
Like
see
you
because
enter job interview mom or something. If you Google that, you'll find it. It's really touching, especially if you're a mom yourself and you're like, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
it's another thing if you do. And then I may maybe bridge this to something that I think if you find that what you do that you love, something to do that you
hmm,
love, like for me in my therapeutic work, it doesn't feel like work. It's just like, it's
right.
bridging that thing, because as a mom, you just do it,
Hmm,
and even
right.
this is like something, if you're passionate for something, so anyone out there who's like, find what you're passionate for. It's so much,
It's
life
so
becomes so
important.
much, happier if you do that. And
Yes.
even if you have
And
a job,
joyful.
right, yeah, and even if you have a job that you might not like super enjoy, find the things that you enjoy in it, and find
Mm,
your joy other places. This is something that I often, when people come to me, I often, I'm not so much like, of course, there's a problem in the room and we want to solve it. But what I also like
mhm,
to do is really try to strengthen other areas in their life so that their batteries
mm,
are recharged, to deal with the problems that they have. So often enough, we'll just divert to something else and really like, okay, what do you do to charge your batteries? What do you do that makes you happy? Have you done that? No, I haven't done that for a long time. Check it out. And
Go
of
do it.
course, again,
Yeah.
no limitations to another thing I really like to work with is say something if you want change and you're a bit like because our system wants to, draw back to the old coping mechanisms, what have yous.
Mhm.
So if they say, I'd like to try this and this, I said, yes, try it, but do it as an experiment. Like not as an, okay, now I have to change, but if an experiment kind of like takes out the pressure, like just
Mhm.
experiment it with for 2 weeks. And if you don't like it, or for a week even, or for a day or whatever, and if you don't like it, you can just, you know,
Let it go. And and
right,
and that's a bit of a learning experience, whether it's
right,
work-wise or a new activity for exercise, because the lots of people, whether it's New Year's or their birthday or whatever, they're like, that's it. This is the year. I'm gonna get in
right,
shape. I'm gonna want great. Or they're like, but I hate working out. It's like, okay, maybe you hate going to the gym and like just lifting weights. Maybe try taking a class, take a Pilates class, go is basketball your thing? Go play basketball. Go do there's
right.
so many things to
Or use
try
your
and
bike instead of your car to go someplace,
right.
for
Yeah, and if
instance,
it's work
Yeah.
related, there's so many courses that you can take online. Like I take a number of courses through Coursera. It's
Hmm.
coursera.org, and they've got tons of courses on there. And I take them for myself, so I don't need a certificate. If you want, there's like certificates that you can get, then it's not free. But I did one many years ago, and I thought coding. I'm gonna, maybe I'm gonna do coding because coders are needed everywhere. And this is way before AI. This is probably like 10 years ago. And so I went on. I'm like, well, they have a free course. I'm gonna take the course. Well, I very quickly found out I do not want to be a coder. Like it is not my thing at all. But I did the course. I finished it because since then I've had websites and I've designed and made websites and I've sold them and I've had different things. So that knowledge though that I gained helped me with some of the things that I've done to be enough. I was like, oh, I can go in and fix this. Okay. Oh, I
Right.
know this. Or yeah, no, I need to hire somebody to do that. And I still had the knowledge, but then at least I knew I don't
Yes.
like that. So what else can I do? And sometimes
Right.
the not knowing or the realizing what we don't like is just is it important and we've tried it and realized because how do you know what you like if you haven't tried it?
Right, exactly. And I like what you said also, that transferability of stuff, This is also what I find
Mm,
often, like if you kind of like start solving one area of your life or something like loosens up there, oh, there's a ripple effect to other, and I've tried this here, so it might work there. Also with the stuff like your mindset, I caught myself years ago. I was in a quite good place actually. It wasn't too bad, and I was like, I still had this identity thing of like, oh yeah, I'm struggling, and like financially it was back
yep.
then. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
and then a couple of years later, I noticed, oh my gosh, from that place where I thought I'm the struggling, blah blah blah, I was struggling. I was actually 2 or 3 years later, I was at the point that I had thought myself to be 2 years before. And that was like, oh my gosh, I manifested
You
this. It
attracted
was
that
my
energy.
identity, which kind of like, and then but then, like, first it was in shock and, oh shit, what did I do? That was the first,
Hmm.
thing to realize that. Some people don't realize it either, that this is the way they've
Right.
gone. And then the next step was like, and it's a process. I didn't turn it around
Hmm.
180 like within 2 days or something, because this is a promise which I think is kind of ludicrous, whatever. Um, but then I said, hey, wait a minute. If I can do it like this, I can turn this around and do it like this. And that's what I did then,
Right.
like step by step, slowly. And it's especially hard if it's so in your outer world, your situation that you have yourself manifested, that it's so hard to find, like anchor points where to think like, it's getting better, it's getting better. You have to really to realize that so much in our happening, not happening. Okay, there's certain outer circumstances that we cannot control, of course, but
Of
so
course.
many of the other things that are happening in our lives are very much, like a resonance thing happening.
Pardon the interruption. If you're liking the show so far, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. It really means a lot to me. It helps grow the show and the channel and to the show.
And
Mm,
the other thing I also want to touch on is like this kind of came to my mind right now. There's some an expression which is called the critical mass. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like really
Mm,
to
yes.
if so and so many people, it's like that monkey thing. Didn't there was wasn't it like this monkey island like many years ago some researchers found that there was these monkeys on this island and they one of them by coincidence or by whatever found a tool that he could work with for something to get to food or something. And so he started using that and others started copying him. And then sometime later, I don't know the exact numbers, on a different island where no one had talked to each other and nothing had happened, someone started using that tool as well out of
I
nowhere.
did hear about that story. I don't recall what it was the name of it, but I have heard
Exactly.
of
I don't
that.
know the exact thing, but I thought that was so fascinating. And this is something is a day, and we can bridge this to the constellation work as well, because this is also part of my what I do is there's something in constellation work. I don't know if people are familiar with it. Family constellation work. It has a long-standing history. I have learned it a bit of a different way, and I also apply it bit of a different way. But it's something about like in your system, you can also like either it's your system, your family system, or even your inner system. Like if you have some kind of ailment or whatever, some issue that you want to really look at. And when you look at it and you put something into that system energetically, like by thoughts, it changes the system. It's amazing. It's like it's I don't know, it's woo woo. I don't know where it comes from. I can't really explain. It's hard to explain. Some people have theories about it. I'm still very much in awe of it because it's really it's I think it has a lot to do with intention, like especially when you come in with a concrete question, you will see that something will move in that direction. So it's an
Right.
amazing thing that it shows us that there's so many, like the morphogenic field, there's so many fields of energy also that we are emanating constantly that will
Yes.
draw or repel people and stuff.
Mhm. Well, and it's if you've listened to or read a lot of work by Dr. Joe Dispenza, he
Yes.
has done many studies with energy and how people have been able to heal themselves from diseases and stuff. So he's like, if we can heal ourselves, and everybody's heard about the placebo effect, and
Right.
we're just like, oh, it's a placebo, and it. I mean, it is. If you really truly believe it and think it and kind of like know in your gut that you're going to get better because you've had this
Mm.
procedure or you're taking this pill, and people do get themselves better. And so with him, though, he's taking it to a new level and all scientifically studied and how people can rewire their brain and get rid of disease and like change things within our body that is just it's so fascinating. And it's very interesting and backed by science. And before, like 20 years ago, it used to be everybody would like, oh, woo woo stuff that's,
Right.
not really true, whatever. But more and more we are discovering more about the energy of the body, what we can
Yes.
do for good for ourselves or for bad. So again, it's changing those thoughts.
Right.
And again, it's not happening, as you said, overnight. It's not like, oh, okay, well, I'm just gonna meditate this week and cure myself from whatever's going on, or I'm gonna win the lottery this week, or like
That's
we have to be
right.
realistic. And especially with some of us when we've had 30, 40, 50, 60 years of certain beliefs and thoughts and things, it's going to be pretty tough to change in an instant, except I know that people who have changed in an instant, and when we think of people who have had near death experiences
Mhm.
and
Yes.
and those, then it's like it's such a I'll just say like a shock to the system, maybe physically, but
Right.
that whole, wow, I was in this horrific accident. I almost died. I am not going back to that way of life. And whatever
Right.
changes
Yeah.
they make depending upon it. I mean, it does sometimes happen kind of in that instant, but for most
Right.
of us, it's more of that process because we have to change the unconscious mind and its thinking. And that's where
Totally.
most of things are stored. And we've realized that a lot of times when we think of a memory, we never think of it exactly the same twice.
Mm.
And a lot of times we think of something that we think was bad, our memory makes it worse than what it
Mm.
was. And when we think of good things, our memory tends to make it better than what it was.
Yes.
And so we
Yes.
really have to, when we think of memories, I mean, we want to use the past to help ourselves to like don't make that mistake again. Know, oh, that feeling of love, joy, happiness, sadness, okay, we recognize and know those things, but we have to remember that when we're thinking of a memory, that it isn't exactly what
Yes.
our brain is telling us, and to as it says, like, not live in the past, because if you live in the
Right.
past, that's how you're projecting your future, so you're actually projecting the
Yes.
future based on your past, which is challenging, but it's
I know.
practice.
And there's, of course, there's different, nuances or categories also of traumatic incidences in the past, which are really like also hidden from memory
Mm,
or only pop up in certain amounts. It's such a wide,
right.
spectrum of things that are happening. One nice exercise that I think I'd like to say I came up with the other day, but it's probably already existent somewhere, but I really like to pass it on. I think it's very valuable. So I would call it like the command to the subconscious, which kind of fits to what you're saying. I came up with it at the end of last year, and I thought, you know what? If you could just like an antivirus program, like click and give your subconscious the command, please sift through everything, every negative stuff, and all the unhelpful thoughts that I've thought and regurgitated and what have yous over the last year. And this can be, you can set this at any point. Like it doesn't have to be last
Mm,
year. It's in general. Sift through them and please, because you're the pro version, put them into the trash can right away. I don't even have to see them. So that's one thing. That's the intention. So it's a second long exercise. You just have to press play. I do this in the mornings and in the afternoons, and people have in the evenings. And so many people have told me like, wow, it's changing so much for me. And so that sometimes if negative thoughts come up, so it's really the command is like anything that's unhelpful for my development, away with it, like
mm,
please, no, don't hold me back with this. So during the day, if a bad thought pops up, for me, because I've pressed this button, it's like, sometimes your antivirus system gives you like, oh, this might be some kind of virus, but if it's not, if it's okay,
mm,
please tell me. And if not, I'll just throw it away. And these negative thoughts, now I can identify them much easier and like, you're one of those. And then you don't go down the rabbit hole of that thought, but you just throw it into the trash can and it might pop up tomorrow again, but it's a process.
mm,
I really
mhm,
like that because it's a lot of times, when we're doing change work, it's strenuous, oftentimes it's also in therapy, there's sometimes you come to a plateau and you're like, I've made so much progress, but now it's not happening anymore. And I don't want to do all the work. I totally understand that because it can be very, exhausting to sift through all the
mm.
shit that you've been through. But this exercise, I think, is a nice light version to just like click, yes,
Yeah,
program, please run, especially at night. It's very good because it can run all night. And I find this to be very effective.
absolutely. So if any of our listeners want to get in touch with you to perhaps work with you, where would be the best place for them to find you?
I have a website. It's bilingual, so there's a little flag on each of them that you can press if you want it in English or in German. It's Franziska-Kleffel dot EU. I offer free
Mm,
consultations of 30 minutes, so we can really get in touch and see, like, can I help you with what you're, what's hurting, or can I even refer you to someone else who might be better fit? So I think it's really important to get to know each other without any binding, oh my gosh, I have to take this therapist now, but really to see, like, are we a fit? Can I help you? Also, I have to know if the problem they're coming with, is it something that I find feasible, that I'm able to help them with? I think it's our responsibility as
right.
therapists to really see, like, can I do this or can I not do this? So yeah, just there's a calendar function, and there's blogs, and I've started a little YouTube channel now that I've loaded up in German, a meditation for your future self, a guided one. So yeah,
Perfect.
and I'm
Great.
happy to
Well,
have you.
I
I'm
will make
really, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, I will make sure that we have those links in the show notes to make it easy for everyone to connect with you. And I just want to thank you again very much for your time today.
Thank you so much.